The courtroom was ice cold, but Cassandra Donovan felt sweat dripping down her back as she shifted in the wooden chair. At 8 months pregnant, every position was uncomfortable, but this was torture. Behind her, she could hear Jessica's voice cutting through the air like broken glass. "Look at her," Jessica whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "She can barely fit in that chair." No wonder Roland left her. Cassandra's hands tightened around her purse. She kept her eyes forward, focusing on Judge Sanchez, who was reviewing papers at his bench. Her lawyer, Patricia Stone, had warned her this would be ugly. Roland's team was playing dirty, and Jessica was their secret weapon of cruelty. "Your Honor," Roland's lawyer, Mr. Brighton, stood up with a stack of papers. "My client maintains that Mrs. Donovan has become increasingly unstable since her pregnancy began. These hormonal changes have made her vindictive and irrational." Cassandra felt her baby kick hard against her ribs. Even her unborn daughter seemed angry at the lies being told. She placed her hand on her belly and took a deep breath. Patricia had told her to stay calm no matter what they said. "She's been stalking my client and his new partner," Brighton continued, "taking photos of their home, following them to restaurants. This behavior is dangerous for everyone involved, especially the unborn child." "That's a lie," Cassandra whispered to Patricia. "I know." "Stay quiet," Patricia whispered back. Behind them, Jessica let out a theatrical gasp. "Oh my God, she's talking to her lawyer again. See how paranoid she is." Several people in the gallery turned to look. Cassandra felt heat rising up her neck. This was exactly what they wanted. They wanted her to break down in public, to prove their point about her being unstable. Judge Sanchez looked up from his papers. "Ms. Wright, you are not a party to these proceedings. Please remain silent or I will have you removed from my courtroom." Jessica smiled sweetly. "Sorry, Your Honor. I'm just concerned for everyone's safety." Cassandra knew that smile. She had seen it 6 months ago when she found Jessica in her bedroom, wearing her robe, acting like she belonged there. The same fake innocence that had fooled Roland into throwing away 15 years of marriage. "Mrs. Donovan has also been making false accusations about marital assets," Brighton went on. "She claims my client has hidden money, but she has no proof. These are the desperate actions of a woman who knows she's losing everything." Patricia stood up. "Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Brighton is making statements not in evidence." "Sustained," Judge Sanchez said. "Mr. Brighton, stick to the facts." "Of course, Your Honor. The fact is that Mrs. Donovan is 8 months pregnant and clearly not thinking straight. She needs help, not custody of an innocent child." Cassandra closed her eyes. How had her life become this? 6 months ago, she was planning a nursery and picking out baby names with the man she thought loved her. Now that same man sat 10 feet away, nodding along as his lawyer tried to paint her as crazy. "She can't even take care of herself," Jessica said loud enough for the microphones to pick up. "Look at her clothes. Look at how she's sitting. That baby deserves better." This time Judge Sanchez slammed his gavel. "Ms. Wright, I warned you. One more outburst and you will be removed." But Jessica wasn't done. She had been building up to this moment for weeks. Every court appearance she got a little bolder. Today she was going for the kill. "I'm just saying what everyone is thinking," Jessica said, standing up in the gallery. "She's pathetic. No wonder Roland fell in love with someone else." The words hit Cassandra like a physical blow. She felt the baby kick again, harder this time. Her daughter was reacting to her stress. Cassandra forced herself to breathe slowly in and out, just like they taught her in the birthing classes she now attended alone. Roland finally spoke up, not to defend Cassandra but to support Jessica. "Your Honor, my fiancée is only trying to protect my child. Cassandra has been saying terrible things about both of us. She's trying to poison people against us." Fiancé. The word made Cassandra sick. They hadn't even finalized the divorce yet, and Roland was already planning his next wedding. Jessica was wearing a new diamond ring that caught the courtroom lights. Cassandra recognized it. She had seen the same ring in the jewelry store window downtown, the one that cost more than she spent on groceries in 6 months. "Your Honor," Patricia stood again. "I would like to request a brief recess. My client is in her 3rd trimester and needs a moment." Judge Sanchez looked at Cassandra with what might have been sympathy. 10-minute recess. As the courtroom began to clear, Jessica walked past Cassandra's table. She stopped and leaned down, pretending to pick up something from the floor. "You should have seen this coming," she whispered. "A man like Roland was never going to stay with someone like you forever. I'm everything you're not. Younger, prettier, and I actually care about my appearance." Cassandra looked up at the woman who had destroyed her marriage. Jessica was beautiful in a sharp, artificial way. Perfect blonde hair, perfect makeup, perfect clothes that probably cost more than Cassandra's rent. But there was something cold in her eyes, something that made Cassandra's skin crawl. "You won't win this," Jessica continued. "Roland and I have everything planned out. Your little girl is going to grow up knowing who really loves her father." That was the final straw. Not the lies about the money, not the fake psychiatric evaluation, not even the public humiliation. But threatening her unborn daughter crossed a line that Cassandra didn't even know existed. She stood up as best she could, her hand on her belly. "Stay away from my child." Jessica laughed. "Your child? Honey, that baby is going to be living with us half the time. I'm going to be her stepmother whether you like it or not." Patricia quickly stepped between them. "That's enough. Jessica, please return to your seat." But Jessica wasn't finished. She had been waiting months to say these words to Cassandra's face. "I hope you enjoy these last few weeks," she said. "Because once that baby is born, everything changes. Roland will get custody, and you'll be lucky if you see her on weekends." As Jessica walked away, Cassandra sank back into her chair. The woman's perfume lingered in the air, expensive and overwhelming. Everything about Jessica was too much, too bright, too confident. And somehow, that confidence was working in court. Cassandra looked across the room at Roland, who was smiling at something on his phone. Probably a text from Jessica. He looked relaxed, happy even. Like this was just another day at the office instead of a fight for their child's future. The 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. When Judge Sanchez returned, Cassandra tried to sit up straighter. Her back ached, her feet were swollen, and she felt completely alone. But she had to keep fighting. Not for herself and definitely not for Roland. For the little girl growing inside her who deserved better than a father who chose his mistress over his family. As the proceedings resumed, Cassandra made herself a promise. No matter what Jessica said, no matter how many lies Roland told, she would not break down in this courtroom. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her fall apart. She had no idea that in just a few minutes, everything would change. 6 months earlier, Cassandra had been humming while she made breakfast. The pregnancy test was still in her purse and she couldn't stop smiling. After 3 years of trying, she was finally going to have a baby. At 32, she had started to worry it might never happen. Now she was planning how to tell Roland the good news. Maybe she would put the test in a gift box. Or bake it into a cake. She had seen cute ideas on Pinterest where wives surprised their husbands with tiny baby shoes or a onesie that said, "Daddy's little girl." Roland would be so excited. They had talked about children since their second date 15 years ago. The coffee maker beeped, and Cassandra poured Roland's usual cup. Black, no sugar, in the blue mug his mother had given him for Christmas. She had been making his coffee every morning for 15 years, and it still made her happy to do these small things for the man she loved. "Roland, breakfast is ready," she called upstairs. No answer. He was probably in the shower. Cassandra started making eggs the way he liked them, over easy with the yolk still runny. She was so focused on not breaking the yellow center that she didn't hear his phone buzzing on the counter. Text after text kept coming in. Finally, Cassandra glanced over and saw the screen lighting up. The messages were from someone named Jess. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Roland, you left your watch here. I'm wearing that red dress you like." Cassandra's hand froze over the frying pan. Jessica. She knew that name. Jessica Wright worked at Roland's accounting firm. She had met her at the company Christmas party 3 months ago. A blonde woman with perfect teeth who had spent the entire evening laughing too loud at Roland's jokes. The eggs were burning. Cassandra turned off the heat and picked up Roland's phone. She had never looked through his messages before. In 15 years she had never felt the need to. They trusted each other completely. Or at least she thought they did. There were dozens of messages from Jessica. Weeks of them. Cassandra scrolled up and saw photos that made her stomach turn. Jessica in lingerie. Jessica in Cassandra's kitchen, making coffee in the same blue mug Cassandra was holding. Jessica wearing one of Roland's work shirts and nothing else. "Hey babe, what's for breakfast?" Roland's voice came from behind her. Cassandra didn't turn around. She kept reading the messages, each one worse than the last. Plans to meet at hotels. Complaints about how boring Cassandra was. Jessica calling her the wife, like she was some annoying obstacle to work around. "Cassandra? You okay?" She finally turned to face her husband. He was wearing his gray suit, the one she had bought him for his birthday last year. His hair was still damp from the shower. He looked exactly like the man she had fallen in love with in college, except now she was seeing him clearly for the first time. "Who is Jess?" she asked. Roland's face changed. The casual smile disappeared, replaced by something careful and cold. What do you mean? Your phone has been buzzing all morning. Messages from someone named Jess. Oh, that's just a coworker. We're working on a project together. Cassandra held up the phone so he could see the screen. The latest message was a photo of Jessica in bed, clearly naked under white sheets. This kind of project? Roland reached for the phone, but Cassandra stepped back. Cassandra, I can explain. Explain what? That you're sleeping with Jessica, right? That she's been in our house? In our bed. It's not what you think. But it was exactly what she thought. Cassandra kept scrolling through the messages and the timeline became clear. The affair had been going on for 4 months. 4 months of lies and secrets while Cassandra had been trying to get pregnant with his child. She was here yesterday, Cassandra said, reading a message from Jessica thanking Roland for the amazing afternoon. While I was at work, you brought her to our house. Cassandra, please. Let me explain. Explain what? That while I was at the doctor finding out I'm pregnant, you were texting another woman about meeting at a hotel? The words hung in the air between them. Roland's face went white. You're pregnant. Cassandra had imagined this moment 100 times. Roland picking her up and spinning her around. Both of them crying happy tears. Making plans for the nursery and calling their parents with the good news. Instead he looked terrified. How pregnant? He asked. 2 months. Roland sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs. Oh God. Not the reaction she had hoped for. Cassandra looked at the phone again and saw more messages. Jessica complaining about how clingy Cassandra was. How she was always texting Roland about boring things like grocery lists and dinner plans. How she dressed like an old lady and never wore makeup anymore. She doesn't know about me, does she? Cassandra asked. Roland didn't answer. You told her we were separated. That we were getting divorced. Cassandra. That's why she's so comfortable sending these photos. She thinks I'm your ex-wife, not your actual wife who's been making your coffee every morning for 15 years. The kitchen felt too small. Cassandra needed air, but she couldn't stop reading the messages. There were plans for Jessica to move in with Roland as soon as the divorce was final. Plans for trips they would take together. Plans for a whole future that didn't include Cassandra. When were you going to tell me? She asked. When were you going to mention that you wanted a divorce? I don't want a divorce, Roland said quickly. Jessica is just, it's complicated. What's complicated about adultery? Roland stood up and tried to put his hands on her shoulders, but Cassandra stepped away. She couldn't bear for him to touch her right now. Not when his hands had been touching Jessica right. I love you, he said. I love our life together. Jessica is just, she's different. She makes me feel young again. I'm 32, Roland. I'm not exactly ancient. That's not what I meant. But Cassandra was starting to understand what he meant. Jessica was 26 and had never been married. She didn't have stretch marks or worry lines. She didn't spend her evenings grading papers or making grocery lists. She was exciting in a way that Cassandra, after 15 years of marriage, apparently wasn't. I can end it, Roland said. I'll tell Jessica it's over. We can work through this. Cassandra looked down at the phone again. The most recent message from Jessica was from this morning, sent while Cassandra was making breakfast. Can't wait to start our real life together. Their real life. Like the life Cassandra and Roland had built together was fake. Like 15 years of marriage was just something temporary to get through until Jessica came along. She thinks you're leaving me, Cassandra said. I told her I was thinking about it. The honesty was worse than the lies. Cassandra sat down in the chair Roland had been in and tried to process what he was saying. He had been thinking about leaving her. While she was taking prenatal vitamins and reading books about baby names, he was planning to abandon their marriage. How long have you been thinking about leaving me? Roland didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. Since before I met Jessica. That hurt more than all the photos and messages combined. The affair wasn't some sudden mistake or moment of weakness. Roland had been unhappy in their marriage for months, maybe years, and had never said a word to her about it. Why didn't you tell me you were unhappy? I didn't want to hurt you. So instead you decided to cheat on me and lie to your girlfriend about being separated? When Roland put it like that, it sounded even worse. Cassandra stood up again and walked to the window. Their backyard looked the same as it had yesterday morning, but everything else had changed. The swing set they had bought for future children. The garden they had planted together last spring. The life they had built that apparently meant nothing to him. I'll end it with Jessica, Roland said again. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Cassandra turned to face him. Can you fix 4 months of lying? Can you fix bringing another woman into our bed? Can you fix telling her that our marriage was over when I didn't even know there was a problem? We can try. But Cassandra was done trying. She looked at the pregnancy test in her purse and made a decision that would change everything. No, she said. We can't. Cassandra spent the morning in her car outside the library, calling in sick to work and trying to figure out what to do next. She couldn't go home. The house felt contaminated now, knowing that Jessica had been there. She couldn't face her students, not when she could barely keep herself together. She found herself driving to her sister Linda's house without really deciding to go there. Linda lived 20 minutes away in a neighborhood that still felt safe and normal. When Linda answered the door and saw Cassandra's face, she immediately pulled her inside. What happened? Linda asked, guiding Cassandra to the couch. Cassandra had planned to explain everything calmly, but as soon as she tried to speak, the words came out in a rush. The pregnancy test. The messages on Roland's phone. The photos of Jessica in their bed. The plans to start a real life together. Linda listened without interrupting, her face getting more and more angry. When Cassandra finished, Linda was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? Linda finally asked. I don't know. You know what I think you should do. Cassandra did know. Linda had never been Roland's biggest fan. She thought he was too controlling, too concerned with appearances. She had warned Cassandra years ago that Roland expected too much and gave too little in return. I'm pregnant, Cassandra said. I'm 8 weeks pregnant with his child. All the more reason to leave him now before things get more complicated. But leaving felt impossible. Cassandra had been with Roland since she was 17 years old. Half her life. She didn't know how to be an adult without him. Their finances were combined, their friends were shared, their whole world was built around being a couple. What if he really does end it with her? Cassandra asked. What if we can work through this? Linda gave her a look that said everything. Cassandra, honey, he's been lying to you for 4 months. He told another woman he was leaving you. He brought her into your house, into your bed. This isn't some mistake he made. This is who he chose to be. Cassandra knew Linda was right, but knowing and accepting were different things. She had spent 15 years building a life with Roland. They had plans. They were supposed to grow old together. They were supposed to raise children together. I should go home, Cassandra said. We need to talk about this properly. Do you want me to come with you? No. This is something I have to do myself. But when Cassandra got home, she found she wasn't alone. Jessica's silver BMW was parked in her driveway like it belonged there. Through the front window, Cassandra could see Jessica sitting at the kitchen table where she had eaten breakfast that morning. Jessica was wearing a red dress that showed off her figure, and she was laughing at something Roland was saying. Cassandra sat in her car for a few minutes, watching them through the window. They looked comfortable together. Natural. Like this was their house and their life, and Cassandra was the intruder. Finally, she got out of the car and walked to her own front door. She used her key, but the simple act of unlocking her own house felt strange. Like she needed permission to enter. The laughter stopped as soon as she walked into the kitchen. Jessica looked up with surprise, then something that might have been guilt. Roland stood up quickly. Cassandra, I thought you were at work. I called in sick. Jessica was still sitting at the table like she had every right to be there. She had made herself coffee in Cassandra's favorite mug, the one with the chip on the handle that Cassandra had been meaning to replace for months. Hi, Cassandra, Jessica said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Roland told me you weren't feeling well. The casual way she said it made Cassandra's blood pressure spike. Like they were all friends having a normal conversation. Like Jessica wasn't the woman who had been sleeping with Cassandra's husband for 4 months. What are you doing in my house? Cassandra asked. Jessica looked at Roland like she expected him to handle this. When he didn't say anything, she answered for herself. Roland invited me over to talk. We thought it would be good for all of us to clear the air. Clear the air. Like this was some minor misunderstanding instead of adultery. Get out, Cassandra said. Cassandra, Roland started, but she cut him off. I said get out. This is my house. I didn't invite you here. Jessica looked genuinely shocked. Like she couldn't believe Cassandra would be rude to her. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Jessica said. Roland and I care about each other. We didn't mean for it to happen, but sometimes these things are bigger than all of us. The way she said it made Cassandra want to scream. Like their affair was some romantic destiny instead of a choice they had made to hurt people. There's no misunderstanding, Cassandra said. You're sleeping with my husband. In my house. In my bed. I want you to leave right now. Cassandra, please, Roland said. We're all adults here. We can handle this maturely. But Cassandra was done being mature. She was done being understanding. She was 8 weeks pregnant and her husband was asking her to be polite to his mistress. Maturely, she said. You want me to handle this maturely? You've been lying to me for 4 months. You brought your girlfriend into our house while I was at work. You told her we were separated when we're not. And now you want me to sit down and have a friendly chat with her? Jessica stood up from the table. Look, I know this is hard for you, but Roland and I love each other. We're not trying to hurt anyone. You love each other? Cassandra turned to Roland. You love her. Roland looked uncomfortable, but he didn't deny it. Cassandra, my feelings for Jessica don't change what we have together. What we have together. What exactly do we have together? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like we have 15 years of lies and a pregnancy you're not happy about. Jessica's eyes widened. You're pregnant? Roland hadn't told her. Of course he hadn't. That would complicate his plans to leave his wife for his younger girlfriend. Yes, Cassandra said. I'm pregnant with his child. Jessica looked at Roland with an expression Cassandra couldn't read. Surprise definitely. But also something else. Anger maybe. Or calculation. How pregnant? Jessica asked. 8 weeks. Jessica did the math quickly. 8 weeks ago, Roland had been telling her he was ready to leave his marriage. 8 weeks ago, he had been making plans for their future together. You were trying to get pregnant while you were planning to leave me? Cassandra asked Roland. It wasn't planned, he said. The pregnancy was an accident. An accident. Cassandra had been so excited about the baby that morning, and now her husband was calling their child an accident in front of his mistress. Get out, Cassandra said again, this time to both of them. Both of you. Get out of my house right now. Cassandra, this is my house too, Roland said. Then I'll leave. Cassandra started toward the stairs, but Jessica's voice stopped her. You don't have to leave, Jessica said. Roland and I were just talking about how to handle this situation. We want to do what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone? Cassandra turned around. What would that be exactly? Jessica and Roland exchanged a look that made Cassandra's stomach turn. They had been discussing her. Making plans for her life without including her in the conversation. We think you should know that Roland and I are serious about each other, Jessica said. This isn't just some affair. We're planning a future together. Jessica, Roland said quietly. But Jessica wasn't listening to him anymore. She had decided to take control of the situation. I know this is hard to hear, but Roland has been unhappy in your marriage for a long time. He stayed because he didn't want to hurt you, but we can't keep pretending anymore. Cassandra looked at Roland. Is that true? You've been unhappy for a long time? Cassandra. Answer the question. Have you been unhappy in our marriage? Roland took a deep breath. Yes. The simple word hit harder than all of Jessica's speeches. Cassandra had been happy. Even when things were stressful with work or money, even when they were struggling to get pregnant, she had been happy with their life together. She had never suspected that he felt differently. How long? She asked. I don't know. A couple of years, maybe? A couple of years. While Cassandra had been planning their future, Roland had been planning his escape. Why didn't you tell me? I thought it would get better. I thought maybe if we had a baby. You thought having a baby would fix our marriage? I thought it might help. Cassandra felt sick. Not morning sickness, but the kind of nausea that comes from realizing your entire life has been built on false assumptions. So you let me keep trying to get pregnant while you were sleeping with someone else? The affair with Jessica started after we had been trying for a while. I was confused about what I wanted. Jessica stepped closer to Roland and took his hand. The gesture was small but deliberate. She was marking her territory. We want to handle this the right way, Jessica said. We don't want anyone to get hurt unnecessarily. Unnecessarily? Cassandra stared at her. What would be necessary hurt versus unnecessary hurt? We think it would be best if you and Roland separated quietly. That way the baby can have a stable environment with both parents involved. The baby. Jessica was already planning how to manage Cassandra's unborn child. You think my baby should have a stable environment with her father and his mistress? I'm not going to be his mistress much longer, Jessica said. We're planning to get married as soon as your divorce is final. Cassandra looked at Roland. You're planning to marry her? We've talked about it. Before or after you found out I was pregnant? Roland didn't answer. Before, Jessica answered for him. We've been talking about marriage for weeks. Weeks. While Cassandra had been taking prenatal vitamins and reading pregnancy books, Roland and Jessica had been planning their wedding. I want both of you out of my house, Cassandra said. Right now. This is my house too, Roland said again. Then call your lawyer, Cassandra said. Because as of right now, I'm filing for divorce. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and disappointment. Patricia Stone was nothing like Cassandra had expected. She was young, maybe early 30s, with short red hair and fierce green eyes. Her office walls were covered with awards and photos of her with various judges and politicians. How far along are you? Patricia asked as soon as Cassandra sat down. 12 weeks. And your husband knows about the pregnancy? Yes. He called it an accident. Patricia made a note on her legal pad. In front of the other woman? Yes. Good. That helps us establish his attitude toward the child. Cassandra had called 3 lawyers before finding Patricia. The first 2 had suggested marriage counseling. The third had asked if she was sure she wanted to proceed while pregnant. Only Patricia had said what Cassandra needed to hear. Here's what's going to happen, Patricia said. Roland is going to try to paint you as unstable. Pregnancy hormones, emotional distress, not thinking clearly. It's a standard playbook for cheating husbands. But I'm not unstable. I know that. You know that. But we need to make sure the judge knows that too. Patricia explained the process. Temporary orders for support and custody. Discovery to find all the marital assets. Depositions where everyone would have to answer questions under oath. It would take months, maybe longer if Roland decided to fight. What about Jessica? Cassandra asked. What about her? Can she testify against me? Patricia smiled for the first time since Cassandra had walked in. She can try. But adultery is still adultery, even in no-fault divorce states. And if she's been helping your husband hide assets or make plans behind your back, that's going to bite them both. After the meeting, Cassandra drove to her new apartment. It was a tiny 1-bedroom place 20 minutes from the house she had shared with Roland. The rent was twice what she could really afford, but it was clean and safe and had a decent school district for when the baby got older. The apartment came furnished with basic items that didn't match. A brown couch, a black coffee table, a bed that squeaked every time she turned over. Cassandra had brought 2 suitcases of clothes and a box of books. Everything else was still at the house with Roland. And Jessica. Cassandra tried not to think about Jessica sleeping in her bed, using her coffee maker, sitting at her kitchen table. But late at night, when the apartment was quiet and she couldn't sleep, the images came anyway. Jessica wearing Cassandra's bathrobe. Jessica redecorating the master bedroom. Jessica acting like she had always lived there. The worst part was how quickly it had happened. Cassandra moved out on a Tuesday. By Friday, Jessica's car was parked in the driveway overnight. By the following Monday, Jessica was posting photos on social media from inside the house. Pictures of herself cooking dinner in Cassandra's kitchen. Pictures of herself and Roland cuddled on the couch Cassandra had picked out. She's trying to get under your skin, Linda said when Cassandra showed her the photos. Don't let her. But it was working. Every photo felt like a knife twist. Jessica was living the life Cassandra had built, sleeping with the man Cassandra had loved, existing in the space where Cassandra was supposed to be raising her child. The temporary custody order gave Roland visitation rights once the baby was born. Cassandra would have full custody during the week, but Roland would get weekends. Which meant Jessica would be around Cassandra's daughter every other weekend. We can fight that later, Patricia had said. Once the baby is born and we see how involved he actually wants to be. But Cassandra couldn't stop thinking about it. Jessica changing her daughter's diapers. Jessica reading her bedtime stories. Jessica being called some version of mom by the child Cassandra was carrying. At 16 weeks, Cassandra had her first ultrasound alone. The technician asked if the father would be joining them, and Cassandra had to explain that he wouldn't be. She watched her daughter move on the screen and wished things were different. The baby was healthy and active. She was the right size for her gestational age. She had 10 fingers and 10 toes and a strong heartbeat that filled the ultrasound room with steady sound. Do you want pictures? The technician asked. Cassandra ordered a whole packet. She wanted to remember this moment, even if she was experiencing it alone. Walking to her car afterward, she realized she was crying. Not from sadness, exactly, but from the overwhelming reality of what was happening. She was going to be a single mother. She was going to raise this child without the man she had planned to raise her with. But looking at the ultrasound photo, Cassandra felt something unexpected. Relief. Her daughter wouldn't grow up watching her parents lie to each other. She wouldn't think cheating was normal or acceptable. She wouldn't learn that love meant staying with someone who didn't respect you. That night, Cassandra called her mother for the first time since the separation. "How are you holding up?" her mother asked. "I'm okay. Better than okay, actually." "And the baby?" "She's perfect." Cassandra hadn't told her parents the baby was a girl yet. She hadn't told anyone except Linda. But saying it out loud made it feel real in a way that made her smile. It's a girl. She's due in October. "Cassandra, that's wonderful. What are you going to name her?" Cassandra had been thinking about names for weeks. She wanted something strong but feminine. Something that would serve her daughter well whether she became a doctor or an artist or anything in between. "I'm thinking about Zoe. It means life." "Zoe," her mother repeated. "I love it." After they hung up, Cassandra sat in her small living room and looked around. The mismatched furniture, the thin walls, the view of the parking lot instead of a backyard. It wasn't the life she had planned for herself or her daughter. But it was theirs. No lies, no secrets, no wondering if the person sleeping next to her really wanted to be there. Just Cassandra and Zoe building something new together. The next morning Jessica called. "We need to talk," Jessica said without introducing herself. "I don't think we do. It's about the baby." Cassandra almost hung up, but something in Jessica's voice stopped her. Not the usual smugness but something harder to read. "What about the baby?" "Roland and I have been talking about custody arrangements. We want to make sure everything goes smoothly." "You want to make sure everything goes smoothly? You're not the father of my child. You don't get a say in custody arrangements. I'm going to be in her life whether you like it or not. Roland and I are getting married next month." Next month. The divorce wouldn't even be final for another 4 months, but they were getting married next month. "You can't get married while he's still married to me. We're having a commitment ceremony. Just something small with our families. The legal wedding will be later." A commitment ceremony. While Cassandra was 5 months pregnant with Roland's child. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be Zoe's stepmother, and I think we should try to get along for her sake." Zoe. Jessica knew the baby's name. Roland had told her. "Stay away from my daughter," Cassandra said. "I can't do that. She's going to be part of my family too." "No, she's not." "Cassandra, I know you're angry but we need to be practical. Roland and I are building a life together. Your daughter is going to be part of that life. We can do this the easy way or the hard way but either way it's happening." The confidence in Jessica's voice was infuriating. Like she had already won and Cassandra just hadn't accepted it yet. "The hard way it is," Cassandra said and hung up. Patricia's office had become Cassandra's second home. 3 times a week, she made the drive downtown to discuss strategy, review documents and plan for the court battles ahead. At 24 weeks pregnant, the drive was getting more uncomfortable, but Cassandra never missed an appointment. "Tell me about your finances again," Patricia said, spreading bank statements across her desk. Cassandra had been through this a dozen times but she went through it again. Their joint checking account. Their savings. Roland's retirement account from his job at the accounting firm. The house they had bought together 5 years ago. "What about this withdrawal?" Patricia pointed to a line on their bank statement. $2,000 cash taken out the day before you separated. Cassandra leaned forward to look. "I don't know anything about that." "And this one?" $1,500 3 days later. More withdrawals that Cassandra hadn't made and Roland hadn't mentioned. Patricia showed her 6 more, all taken in the 2 weeks after Cassandra moved out. "He's hiding money," Patricia said. "The question is where?" They spent the afternoon going through credit card statements and bank records. Slowly a pattern emerged. Roland had been moving money for months, long before Cassandra found out about the affair. Small amounts at first, then larger ones as the relationship with Jessica became more serious. "Look at this," Patricia said, pointing to a purchase at a jewelry store. $3,000 paid the same day he took out that cash withdrawal. The engagement ring. Roland had bought Jessica an engagement ring with money from his joint account with Cassandra. "Can we prove this?" Cassandra asked. "We're going to try. I'm subpoenaing the jewelry store records. If he bought her a ring with marital funds, that's a gift to his mistress. The court won't like that." Patricia had also found evidence of other spending. Expensive dinners at restaurants Cassandra had never been to. Hotel rooms booked on nights when Roland claimed to be working late. A weekend trip to a ski resort that happened while Cassandra was visiting her sister. "He's been planning this for a long time," Patricia said. "This wasn't some sudden affair. He's been systematically preparing to leave you." The evidence was overwhelming but it was also heartbreaking. Every credit card charge represented a lie Roland had told. Every cash withdrawal was money he had stolen from their future together. What about Jessica? Cassandra asked. Can we prove she knew about me? Patricia smiled. Actually, yes. Look at this. She showed Cassandra a series of text messages that Roland's lawyer had been forced to turn over during discovery. Messages between Roland and Jessica from before Cassandra knew about the affair. She's asking him when he's going to tell his wife about the separation, Patricia read. This message is from 2 months before you found out. She knew he was lying to you. The messages got worse. Jessica complaining about having to sneak around. Jessica asking when she could stop hiding their relationship. Jessica making plans for after the wife was out of the picture. They were planning your whole life without you, Patricia said. Jessica knew Roland was married. She knew you didn't know about the affair. She participated in the deception for months. At 28 weeks, Cassandra had another ultrasound. This time she brought Linda with her for support. Zoe was growing perfectly, moving constantly, and apparently practicing her soccer kicks on Cassandra's ribs. She's going to be feisty, the technician said. Cassandra hoped so. She wanted her daughter to be strong enough to handle whatever life threw at her. Strong enough to stand up for herself. Strong enough to not accept less than she deserved. After the appointment, Linda took Cassandra to lunch at a cafe near the medical building. How are you really doing? Linda asked. Some days are better than others. And Roland? Has he tried to contact you? Only through lawyers. Patricia says that's better. Anything he says to me directly can't be used in court. But Cassandra sometimes missed the contact. Not because she wanted Roland back, but because 15 years of sharing everything with someone was a hard habit to break. She found herself reaching for her phone to text him about doctor appointments or baby updates before remembering that he had chosen Jessica over their family. What about Jessica? She called me last week. Wanted to discuss co-parenting arrangements. Linda's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Please tell me you hung up on her. I did. But she's not going away. She really believes she's going to be Zoe's stepmother. Over my dead body. Cassandra appreciated her sister's anger, but Jessica wasn't wrong about one thing. If Roland got visitation rights, Jessica would be around. There was no way to completely separate them from Zoe's life. Patricia thinks we might be able to limit Jessica's contact with the baby, Cassandra said. At least for the first few years. Courts don't like introducing new partners too quickly after divorce. Good. That woman has no business being around your child. The next week, Patricia called with news. Roland's lawyer wants to settle, she said. Settle how? He's offering you the house and half the retirement accounts. He keeps his business partnership and pays child support until Zoe turns 18. It sounded reasonable, but Cassandra had learned not to trust anything that sounded too good to be true. What's the catch? He wants shared custody. 50-50 split. No. I told him you'd say that. But Cassandra, you need to be prepared. If we go to trial, there's a chance the judge might award him significant visitation anyway. Fathers have rights, even cheating fathers. Cassandra's hand moved to her belly. At 30 weeks, Zoe was running out of room to move around, but she was still active. Especially at night when Cassandra was trying to sleep. What if we take the settlement but negotiate the custody? What are you thinking? He can have visitation but not overnight visits until Zoe is older. And Jessica can't be alone with her. Ever. Patricia was quiet for a moment. That's going to be hard to enforce. Then we don't settle. We go to trial. Okay. But I need to warn you about something. Jessica is planning to attend the trial. She's not a party to the divorce. No, but she's allowed in the courtroom as a member of the public. And Roland's lawyer might call her as a witness. To testify about what? Your mental state. Your fitness as a mother. They're going to argue that you're vindictive and unstable because of the pregnancy hormones. Cassandra had been expecting this, but it still made her angry. So she gets to destroy my marriage and then testify about my mental health? That's the plan. But here's the thing about Jessica. She's arrogant. She thinks she's smarter than everyone else in the room. If I can get her on the witness stand, I might be able to get her to say something that helps our case. Like what? Like admitting she knew about you all along. Like admitting she and Roland have been planning this for months. Like admitting she's been spending marital funds on herself. Patricia pulled out another stack of documents. I've been doing some digging into Jessica's finances. She's been living way above her salary for the past 6 months. Expensive clothes, new car, luxury apartment. Either she has a secret source of income, or someone's been helping her pay for things. You think Roland's been supporting her? I think Roland's been supporting her with your money. And if I can prove that in court, it's going to make both of them look very bad to the judge. As Cassandra drove home to her small apartment, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not hope that she and Roland would reconcile, but hope that justice was possible. Hope that the truth would matter. Hope that her daughter would grow up knowing her mother had fought for her. At 32 weeks, Cassandra started getting ready for Zoe's arrival. She bought a crib and a changing table and set up the nursery in the corner of her bedroom. It wasn't the spacious nursery she had planned in the house with Roland, but it was theirs. Linda came over to help her assemble the furniture. Have you thought about what you're going to do after the baby comes? Linda asked. Go back to work when my maternity leave is over. Patricia thinks the child support will help, but it won't be enough to live on. What about daycare? Cassandra had been researching daycare centers, but the good ones had waiting lists and the affordable ones had problems. It was another thing she had expected to figure out with Roland, another plan that had fallen apart. I'll figure it out. Single mothers do it all the time. You don't have to do it all alone, you know. Mom and I can help. I know. But I want to be able to take care of Zoe myself. I want her to see that women can be strong and independent. She's going to see that, Linda said. She's going to see her mother fighting for what's right and building a good life for both of them. That night, Cassandra put her hands on her belly and talked to Zoe like she did every evening. We're going to be okay, she said. I don't know exactly how yet, but we're going to be okay. Zoe kicked in response and Cassandra took it as agreement. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and fear. Cassandra arrived early for their first formal hearing, her hands shaking as she signed in with the clerk. At 36 weeks pregnant, walking was difficult and sitting was uncomfortable, but she refused to let that show weakness. Patricia met her in the hallway outside the courtroom. How are you feeling? Like I might throw up or go into labor. Possibly both. The throwing up is nerves. Let's hope the labor waits until after we're done here. Judge Sanchez was older than Cassandra had expected, with gray hair and kind eyes that seemed to take in everything. He reviewed the temporary custody petition while the lawyers shuffled papers and whispered to their clients. Roland sat across the courtroom with his lawyer, Mr. Brighton. He looked nervous but determined. He had lost weight since the separation and was wearing a new suit that Jessica had probably picked out for him. Mr. Brighton, Judge Sanchez said, your client is requesting shared custody of a child who hasn't been born yet? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Donovan is committed to being an active father and wants to establish his parental rights. And Mrs. Donovan objects to this arrangement? Patricia stood up. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Donovan is willing to allow reasonable visitation, but she believes shared custody is not in the child's best interest given the circumstances of the separation. What circumstances are those? Mr. Donovan has been engaged in an extramarital affair for the past 8 months. He moved his girlfriend into the marital home immediately after Mrs. Donovan moved out. Mrs. Donovan is concerned about exposing a newborn to an unstable living situation. Judge Sanchez looked at Roland. Mr. Donovan, is it true that you're currently living with someone other than your wife? Yes, Your Honor. Someone you were involved with during your marriage? Roland's lawyer whispered something to him, but Roland answered anyway. Yes, Your Honor. And you want this court to award you overnight visitation with a newborn? Yes, Your Honor. I love my child and want to be part of her life. Judge Sanchez made a note on his pad. The court appreciates your desire to be involved, Mr. Donovan, but newborns have very specific needs. I'm going to order supervised visitation for the first 6 months, with the possibility of expansion based on how well things go. Patricia squeezed Cassandra's hand under the table. It was better than they had hoped for. However, Judge Sanchez continued, I want to be clear that this is a temporary order. Once the child is born and we can assess the actual situation rather than hypotheticals, we may revisit this arrangement. Mr. Brighton started to object, but Judge Sanchez held up his hand. I've seen too many cases where parents use newborns as weapons against each other. This court's primary concern is the welfare of the child, not the convenience of the parents. Supervised visitation for 6 months, then we'll reevaluate. As they left the courtroom, Cassandra felt her first real moment of relief in months. Zoe would be safe. At least for the first 6 months, Jessica wouldn't be alone with her daughter. But in the hallway they ran into Roland and his lawyer. And Jessica. Congratulations, Jessica said to Cassandra. You got what you wanted. Jessica don't, Roland said quietly. But Jessica was angry. Angrier than Cassandra had ever seen her. 6 months of supervised visitation? Really? You're going to keep his own daughter away from him? I'm protecting my daughter from a situation that isn't stable, Cassandra said. Stable? Roland and I are getting married. We're more stable than you are. You're getting married while he's still married to me. The marriage was over long before I came along. Patricia stepped between them. This conversation is over. Jessica, you have no standing in these proceedings. I will when I'm his wife. That may be true someday, but today you're just the woman he was cheating with. Jessica's face went red. How dare you? Ladies, Mr. Brighton interrupted. This isn't helping anyone. But the damage was done. Cassandra had seen Jessica's real face, the anger and entitlement that she usually kept hidden. More importantly, Patricia had seen it too. Did you get that on your recorder? Patricia whispered as they walked away. You were recording? I always record conversations in courthouse hallways. You never know what people will say when they think no one important is listening. 3 days later, Cassandra went into labor. It was 2 weeks early but not dangerously so. Linda drove her to the hospital while calling Patricia and Cassandra's doctor. Should we call Roland? Linda asked as they pulled into the hospital parking lot. Not yet. Cassandra wanted to experience the birth without drama. She wanted to focus on meeting her daughter without worrying about Roland's feelings or Jessica's presence. Zoe was born at 3:47 in the morning after 6 hours of labor. She was perfect. 6 pounds, 3 ounces, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. She looks like you, Linda said, tears in her eyes. Cassandra held her daughter and felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. This tiny person was hers to protect and raise and love. Nothing else mattered as much as this moment. Hi Zoe, she whispered. I'm your mom. Zoe seemed to focus on her voice, and Cassandra felt like they were having their first real conversation. 4 hours later, Roland arrived. Cassandra had called him after she had time to process becoming a mother. He brought flowers and a stuffed animal and an expression of wonder that reminded her of why she had fallen in love with him in the first place. She's beautiful, he said, looking at Zoe through the nursery window. She is. Can I hold her? Cassandra wanted to say no, but she knew that wouldn't be fair to Zoe. Whatever problems she had with Roland, he was still her daughter's father. Yes, but just you. Jessica's not here. She's at work. Cassandra handed Zoe to Roland and watched his face change as he held his daughter for the first time. For a moment, she could almost forget about the affair and the lies and the betrayal. For a moment, they were just two people who had created something beautiful together. But the moment didn't last long. I want her to have my last name, Roland said. She does. Zoe Donovan. I want it to be official. On the birth certificate. Cassandra had already filled out the birth certificate with Zoe's full name. Zoe Patricia Donovan. Patricia for her lawyer who had fought so hard for them. It is official. What's her middle name? Patricia. Roland frowned. Patricia? Like your lawyer? Yes. That's inappropriate. You're naming our daughter after the lawyer who's trying to keep me away from her. I'm naming our daughter after a woman who fought for what was right. Roland handed Zoe back to Cassandra. We need to discuss this. There's nothing to discuss. Her name is Zoe Patricia Donovan. My lawyer says. Your lawyer can say whatever he wants. I'm her mother and I named her. It was their first fight as parents and it set the tone for everything that would follow. They couldn't even agree on their daughter's name without it becoming a legal issue. After Roland left, Cassandra looked down at Zoe, who was sleeping peacefully despite the tension in the room. It's okay, baby girl, she said. Mommy's going to make sure you're safe and loved no matter what. Outside her hospital room, Cassandra could hear nurses talking about visiting hours and discharge procedures. Tomorrow she would take Zoe home to her small apartment and begin the process of being a single mother. It wasn't the life she had planned, but looking at her daughter's perfect face, Cassandra felt something unexpected. Happiness. Not the complicated, conditional happiness she had felt with Roland, but something pure and uncomplicated. Love without lies. Joy without betrayal. A future that belonged entirely to her and Zoe. As Cassandra fell asleep that night with Zoe in her arms, she made a promise to her daughter. You're going to grow up knowing you're loved, she whispered. And you're going to grow up knowing that love doesn't mean accepting less than you deserve. Life with a newborn was everything Cassandra had expected and nothing she was prepared for. Zoe was a good baby, but she still woke up every 3 hours to eat. By the time she was a month old, Cassandra felt like she was living in a fog of exhaustion and baby formula. The supervised visits with Roland were scheduled for Saturday afternoons at a family center downtown. A social worker named Mrs. Chen watched while Roland held Zoe and tried to figure out how to change diapers and warm bottles. "He's not very natural with her," Mrs. Chen noted in her report. It was true. Roland seemed nervous around Zoe, like he was afraid he might break her. He held her stiffly and always looked relieved when the 2-hour visit was over. "Most new fathers need time to adjust," Patricia said when Cassandra expressed her concerns. "The important thing is that he's showing up." But Roland wasn't the only one showing up. Jessica had started appearing at the family center during the visits. She couldn't come into the room because of the court order, but she waited in the lobby. When Cassandra arrived to pick up Zoe, Jessica was always there. "How's my little stepdaughter?" Jessica would say loudly enough for everyone to hear. She wasn't Zoe's stepmother. She wasn't even legally married to Roland yet. But Jessica acted like she had rights that she didn't actually have. "She needs to stop calling herself Zoe's stepmother," Cassandra told Patricia. "Technically, she can call herself whatever she wants. It doesn't give her any legal standing." But it was irritating and confusing for everyone involved. The social workers didn't know how to handle Jessica's presence. The other families at the center stared when she made her dramatic announcements about being a stepmother. At Zoe's 2-month checkup, Cassandra ran into Jessica at the pediatrician's office. "What are you doing here?" Cassandra asked. "I had some questions about Zoe's development. I wanted to talk to her doctor." "You're not her parent. Her doctor can't talk to you. I'm going to be her stepmother. I need to understand her medical needs." Dr. Williams, Zoe's pediatrician, came out of an exam room and saw them talking. "Mrs. Donovan? Is everything all right? This is Jessica Wright. She's not related to Zoe, but she's been trying to get information about my daughter's medical care." Dr. Williams looked at Jessica with professional politeness. "I'm sorry, but I can only discuss patient information with parents or legal guardians." "I understand," Jessica said. "But I'm going to be part of Zoe's life, so I want to make sure I know how to take care of her properly. When you have legal standing to make medical decisions for Zoe, we can discuss her care. Until then, I can only speak with her mother and father." Jessica smiled, but Cassandra could see the anger underneath. "Of course. I just want what's best for Zoe." After Dr. Williams went back into his office, Jessica turned to Cassandra. "You can't keep me away from her forever. I can keep you away from her until the court says otherwise. The court is going to change its mind. Roland's lawyer is filing for expanded visitation." This was news to Cassandra. Patricia hadn't mentioned any new filings. "When?" "Soon. And when he gets overnight visits, I'll be there too. Whether you like it or not." That afternoon, Cassandra called Patricia. "Did Roland file for expanded visitation?" "Not yet, but I expect him to soon. It's been 2 months and the supervised visits are going well according to Mrs. Chen. What if Jessica is right? What if the judge gives him overnight visits? Then we'll deal with it. But Cassandra, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that Zoe will spend some nights at Roland's house. And if Jessica is living there, she'll be around." The thought made Cassandra sick. Zoe was still so small, still nursing every few hours. The idea of her spending the night away from her mother felt wrong in every possible way. What if I'm still breastfeeding? That might buy us some time. Courts are usually reluctant to separate nursing babies from their mothers overnight. A week later, Jessica called Cassandra directly. "We need to set up a meeting," Jessica said. "No, we don't. It's about Zoe's future. Roland and I are getting married next month, and we want to discuss co-parenting arrangements. I co-parent with Roland. I don't co-parent with you. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to be Zoe's stepmother. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." "What's the easy way?" "You acknowledge that I'm part of Zoe's family now. You stop trying to keep me away from her. You accept that Roland and I are building a life together that includes his daughter. And the hard way? We go back to court. Roland asks for expanded visitation and gets it. I become part of Zoe's life anyway, but without your cooperation." Cassandra was quiet for a moment. "Jessica, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you actually want to be a stepmother to a baby? Or do you just want to win?" "I want to build a family with the man I love." "That's not what I asked." Jessica was quiet for a longer moment. "I think you're trying to keep Roland and me apart by using Zoe as a weapon. I'm trying to protect my 3-month-old daughter from a confusing and unstable situation." "Unstable?" "Roland and I have been together for over a year. We own a house together. We're getting married. How is that unstable?" You own my house together. It's not your house anymore. The casualness of it took Cassandra's breath away. Jessica talked about taking over Cassandra's life like it was the most natural thing in the world. I have to go, Cassandra said. Think about what I said. We can make this easy or we can make this hard. Your choice. That night, Cassandra called Linda. She called me today. She wants to meet to discuss co-parenting arrangements. Please tell me you said no. I said no, but she threatened to go back to court. Let her. You have legal custody. She has no rights. But if Roland gets overnight visitation, she'll be around anyway. Linda was quiet for a moment. Are you thinking about meeting with her? I don't know. Maybe if I talk to her, I can make her understand that Zoe needs stability. Cassandra, honey, that woman doesn't care about Zoe's stability. She cares about winning. She wants to prove that she can take everything that was yours, including your daughter. Linda was right, but Cassandra felt trapped. If she didn't meet with Jessica, Jessica would paint her as unreasonable in court. If she did meet with Jessica, she would be legitimizing Jessica's role in Zoe's life. The next Saturday at the family center, Cassandra watched Roland try to get Zoe to take a bottle. Zoe was fussy and kept turning her head away from the nipple. She was used to nursing and didn't like the artificial substitute. She's not eating, Roland said to Mrs. Chin. Some babies need time to adjust to bottles. It's normal. But what if she doesn't eat anything during my visit? Then you'll try again next week. Through the window, Cassandra could see Jessica pacing in the lobby. She was wearing a white dress that was obviously expensive and probably impractical for being around a baby. Her phone was pressed to her ear and she was talking animatedly to someone. After the visit, Cassandra was packing up Zoe's diaper bag when Jessica approached. She didn't eat much during the visit, Jessica said. She's breastfeeding. Bottles are still new for her. Maybe you should consider switching to formula. It would make visitation easier. Cassandra stared at her. You want me to stop breastfeeding my 3-month-old daughter to make visitation easier? I'm just saying it might be better for everyone. Better for who? Certainly not better for Zoe. Better for Roland. Better for me. Better for you actually, because then you wouldn't have to worry about her eating during visits. The arrogance was breathtaking. Jessica was suggesting that Cassandra stop breastfeeding her baby for Jessica's convenience. I'm not stopping breastfeeding because you think it would be easier. Fine. But when Roland gets overnight visits, you're going to have to pump enough milk to last the whole weekend. And what if Zoe won't take bottles from him? What if she cries all night? Then maybe overnight visits aren't appropriate yet. Jessica stepped closer. Or maybe you're being selfish. Maybe you're using breastfeeding as an excuse to keep Zoe away from her father. I'm using breastfeeding to feed my baby? That's literally what it's for. Courts can order mothers to wean their babies if it interferes with custody arrangements. Cassandra had never heard of such a thing, but Jessica said it with such confidence that it sounded possible. Is that a threat? It's information. Something you might want to consider. As Cassandra drove home with Zoe sleeping in her car seat, she felt more defeated than she had since the divorce started. Jessica seemed to have an answer for everything, a legal strategy for every situation. And worst of all, some of what she said made sense from a legal perspective, even if it was emotionally devastating. That night, Cassandra called Patricia. Can a court really order me to stop breastfeeding? Theoretically, in extreme circumstances. But those are very rare cases where the mother is using breastfeeding to completely prevent a father from seeing his child. That's not your situation. Jessica seems to think it is. Jessica isn't a lawyer. She's a woman who's watched too many legal dramas on TV. But Patricia's reassurance didn't make Cassandra feel much better. Jessica was smart and determined and completely ruthless. And she had nothing to lose. If her relationship with Roland didn't work out, she could walk away and start over. But Cassandra couldn't walk away from being Zoe's mother. As Cassandra fell asleep that night, she wondered if she was fighting a battle she couldn't win. The morning of the final hearing, Cassandra woke up at 5 a.m. with her stomach in knots. Zoe was 4 months old now, sleeping better at night but still nursing every few hours. Cassandra had barely slept, not because of the baby, but because of what was about to happen. Patricia had prepared her as much as possible. They had practiced questions and answers. They had reviewed all the evidence. They had developed strategies for different scenarios. But courtrooms were unpredictable, and Jessica's presence added a wild card that made everything more complicated. Remember, Patricia said as they walked into the courthouse, stay calm no matter what they say. Jessica is going to try to get under your skin. Don't let her. The courtroom was more crowded than Cassandra had expected. Besides the lawyers and the main parties, there were several people in the gallery. Some were other lawyers waiting for their cases to be called. Others were family members. Jessica sat in the front row behind Roland's table, wearing a navy blue dress that made her look professional and serious. She had pulled her blonde hair back into a conservative bun and was wearing minimal makeup. She looked like someone's idea of the perfect stepmother. Roland looked nervous. He kept checking his phone and whispering to his lawyer. He had lost more weight since Zoe was born and looked older somehow. The stress of the divorce and new parenthood was showing. Judge Sanchez entered the courtroom and everyone stood. He looked tired, like he had been dealing with contentious divorces all morning and wasn't looking forward to another one. "Good morning," he said, settling into his chair. "This is the matter of Donovan versus Donovan, final hearing on divorce and custody. Are all parties ready to proceed?" Both lawyers indicated they were ready. "Mr. Brighton, you may call your first witness." "Thank you, Your Honor. I call Roland Donovan." Roland walked to the witness stand with visible nervousness. He was sworn in and sat down, avoiding eye contact with Cassandra. Mr. Brighton led him through basic questions about his job, his income, his living situation. Roland answered in a clear voice, painting a picture of a stable man who wanted to be an active father. "Mr. Donovan, how often do you currently see your daughter?" "Every Saturday for 2 hours. Supervised visits at the family center." "And how do you feel about that arrangement?" "It's not enough. I want to be a real father to Zoe, not just a visitor." "What kind of custody arrangement would you prefer?" "I'd like shared custody. Alternating weeks or at least overnight visits on weekends." "And you feel capable of caring for a 4-month-old infant overnight?" "Yes. I've learned a lot during the supervised visits. I can change diapers, give bottles, put her to sleep. I want to do the normal things that fathers do." Mr. Brighton nodded approvingly. "Tell the court about your current living situation." "I live in the house that my wife and I bought together 5 years ago. It's a 4-bedroom house in a good neighborhood with excellent schools." "Do you live alone?" "No, I live with my fiancée, Jessica Wright." "And how long have you and Ms. Wright been engaged?" 6 months. "Do you plan to marry Ms. Wright?" "Yes, next month." Mr. Brighton was building a picture of stability and commitment. 2 adults planning a life together, ready to provide a loving home for Zoe. "Does Ms. Wright have experience with children?" "She has a degree in early childhood education and worked in daycare centers before her current job." This was news to Cassandra. Jessica had experience with children. That would look good to the judge. "Mr. Donovan, how do you feel about your ex-wife's attitude toward your relationship with Ms. Wright?" "I think Cassandra is still angry about the divorce and is taking that anger out on our daughter. She's trying to keep Zoe away from me as a way to punish me." Cassandra felt her face get hot, but Patricia touched her arm in warning. "Can you give the court an example?" "She won't let Jessica meet Zoe, even though Jessica is going to be her stepmother. She makes scheduling visits difficult. She's still breastfeeding even though Zoe is 4 months old, which makes overnight visits impossible." "What's unusual about breastfeeding a 4-month-old?" "Nothing except that Cassandra refuses to supplement with formula. She knows that if Zoe won't take bottles, I can't have overnight visits." Mr. Brighton was making it sound like Cassandra was using breastfeeding as a weapon. Technically it wasn't illegal, but it made her look manipulative. "Thank you, Mr. Donovan. No further questions." Patricia stood up for cross-examination. "Mr. Donovan, when did your relationship with Ms. Wright begin?" "About a year ago." "And when did you tell your wife about this relationship?" "She found out about 6 months ago." "So you were involved with Ms. Wright for approximately 6 months before your wife knew about it?" "Yes." "During those 6 months were you living with your wife?" "Yes." "Sleeping in the same bed?" "Yes." "Having marital relations?" Roland looked uncomfortable. "Sometimes." "So you were intimate with your wife while carrying on a secret relationship with another woman?" "The marriage was already over. I just hadn't told Cassandra yet." "But Cassandra didn't know the marriage was over, did she?" "No." "As far as she knew, you were happily married and trying to start a family?" "We were trying to get pregnant, yes." "And you continued trying to get pregnant with your wife while secretly planning to leave her for Ms. Wright?" Mr. Brighton objected, but Judge Sanchez overruled him. "Answer the question, Mr. Donovan." "I was confused about what I wanted." "Confused enough to get your wife pregnant while planning to leave her?" "The pregnancy wasn't planned." "But you didn't stop trying to conceive when you started your relationship with Ms. Wright, did you?" "No." Patricia was methodically destroying Roland's credibility. Every answer made him look worse. Mr. Donovan, you testified that you want shared custody of Zoe. How many times have you changed her diaper without supervision? I don't know exactly. More than 10 times? I'm not sure. More than 5 times? Probably not. Have you ever given Zoe a bath by yourself? No. She's still very small. Have you ever put her to sleep by yourself? Not without the social worker there. Have you ever taken care of her when she was sick? She hasn't been sick during my visits. So your experience caring for Zoe consists entirely of 2-hour supervised visits where a trained social worker was present to help you? Yes, but I'm learning. And you feel ready to care for her overnight based on this experience? I think I could figure it out. Patricia looked at the judge. Mr. Donovan thinks he could figure out how to care for a 4-month-old infant overnight. No further questions. Roland looked defeated as he returned to his seat. His lawyer had tried to present him as a committed father, but Patricia had exposed him as an inexperienced parent who was in over his head. Mr. Brighton, call your next witness. I call Jessica Wright. Cassandra's stomach dropped. She had known this was coming, but seeing Jessica walk confidently to the witness stand was still a shock. Jessica was sworn in and sat down with perfect posture. She looked directly at Mr. Brighton and smiled slightly, like she was looking forward to this. Ms. Wright, please tell the court about your educational background. I have a bachelor's degree in early childhood education from State University and a master's degree in educational psychology. And your work experience? I worked in daycare centers for 3 years after college, then moved into corporate training and development. I currently work as a training coordinator for a large company. Do you have experience caring for infants? Yes, extensive experience. I've cared for children from 6 weeks old to 5 years old. Jessica was presenting herself as the perfect stepmother. Educated, experienced, and ready to help raise Zoe. Ms. Wright, how would you describe your relationship with Mr. Donovan? We're very much in love. We're getting married next month and planning to build a family together. How do you feel about becoming a stepmother to Zoe? I'm excited about it. I love children, and I think I can provide a stable, loving home environment for her. Have you had any contact with Zoe? Unfortunately, no. Mrs. Donovan has refused to allow me to meet her, even though I'm going to be her stepmother. How does that make you feel? Frustrated. I understand that divorce is difficult, but I think Mrs. Donovan is putting her own feelings ahead of what's best for Zoe. Jessica was good at this. She sounded reasonable and concerned, like a woman who just wanted what was best for everyone involved. Ms. Wright, have you observed Mrs. Donovan's behavior toward you and Mr. Donovan? Yes. She's been very hostile and vindictive. She seems determined to punish us for falling in love. Can you give the court an example? She's refused to consider formula feeding, even though it would make visitation easier for everyone. She's made scheduling visits difficult. She's told people in the community that I'm trying to steal her child. Have you ever tried to steal Mrs. Donovan's child? Of course not. I just want to be part of Zoe's life in an appropriate way. Mr. Brighton nodded. Thank you, Ms. Wright. No further questions. Patricia stood up with a look that made Cassandra nervous. She had seen that look before, usually right before Patricia destroyed someone's credibility. Ms. Wright, when did you first meet Mr. Donovan? About 18 months ago. Where did you meet? At a work conference. And when did your romantic relationship begin? About a year ago. At that time, did you know Mr. Donovan was married? Jessica hesitated for just a moment. Yes. Did you know his wife was trying to get pregnant? I knew they were married. I didn't know the details of their personal life. But you began a sexual relationship with a married man whose wife didn't know about you? The marriage was already in trouble. Roland told me they were planning to separate. When did he tell you that? Early in our relationship. So approximately 11 months ago? Yes. Ms. Wright, I'm going to show you some text messages that were turned over during discovery. Patricia handed Jessica a stack of papers. Jessica's confident expression faltered slightly as she looked at them. These are messages between you and Mr. Donovan from 10 months ago. Could you read the highlighted portion for the court? Jessica looked at the paper reluctantly. I don't think this is relevant. Your Honor, these are messages that were submitted as evidence. The witness should answer. Judge Sanchez nodded. Please read the highlighted portion, Ms. Wright. Jessica's voice was quieter now. It says, when are you going to tell your wife about us? I'm tired of hiding. So 10 months ago, You were asking Mr. Donovan when he was going to tell his wife about your relationship? Yes. Which means his wife didn't know about you at that time? No, she didn't. Ms. Wright, you testified that Mr. Donovan told you he and his wife were planning to separate. When exactly did he tell you that? I don't remember exactly. Was it before or after you sent that text message asking when he was going to tell his wife about you? Jessica was trapped. If she said before, it would contradict the timeline. If she said after, it would prove she knowingly participated in adultery. I don't remember the exact timeline. Let me help you remember. Could you read the next highlighted message? Jessica looked down at the paper. It says, I can't wait until we don't have to sneak around anymore. When did you send that message? I don't remember. According to the metadata, you sent that message 9 months ago. So 9 months ago, you were still sneaking around and Mr. Donovan still hadn't told his wife about you? I guess so. But you testified that he told you they were planning to separate early in your relationship, which would have been 11 months ago. If they were planning to separate, why were you still sneaking around 9 months ago? Jessica was starting to look uncomfortable. Maybe he just needed more time to figure out how to tell her. Or maybe he never told you they were planning to separate. Maybe you knew you were participating in adultery and you didn't care. Objection, Mr. Brighton said. Sustained, Judge Sanchez said, but the damage was done. Patricia continued. Ms. Wright, are you familiar with the prenatal vitamins that Mrs. Donovan was taking during her pregnancy? I don't know anything about that. Have you ever been in the Donovan house? Yes. How many times? I don't know exactly. More than 10 times? Probably. More than 20 times? Maybe. And during those visits, did you see prenatal vitamins in the bathroom or kitchen? Jessica realized where this was going. I might have. So you knew Mrs. Donovan was pregnant before she found out about your relationship? I saw some pills, but I didn't know what they were for. Ms. Wright, you have a degree in educational psychology. Are you telling this court that you couldn't identify prenatal vitamins? Jessica was quiet for a long moment. I might have suspected she was pregnant. And you continued your relationship with her husband anyway? I loved him. You loved him enough to help him deceive his pregnant wife? I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. But you knew you were hurting someone, didn't you? You knew that Mrs. Donovan was pregnant and planning a future with the man you were sleeping with? I thought he would leave her. When? When did you think he would leave his pregnant wife? After the baby was born. The courtroom was completely silent. Jessica had just admitted that she expected Roland to abandon his pregnant wife and newborn child. So your plan was for Mr. Donovan to stay with his wife through her pregnancy and birth, then leave her with a newborn baby? That's not. That is what you just testified, isn't it? That you thought he would leave her after the baby was born? Jessica looked at Roland desperately, but he was staring at the table. I wasn't thinking about it like that. How were you thinking about it, Ms. Wright? I just wanted to be with the man I loved. Even if it meant destroying his family? Objection, Mr. Brighton said. Withdrawn, Patricia said. No further questions. Jessica returned to her seat looking shaken. The confident woman who had taken the stand was gone, replaced by someone who looked young and foolish and cruel. Judge Sanchez called for a brief recess, and Cassandra finally felt like she could breathe again. How did I do? Patricia asked. You destroyed her. She destroyed herself. I just gave her enough rope. But as they waited for the hearing to resume, Cassandra couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go very wrong. When court resumed, Judge Sanchez looked different. More focused, more alert, like Jessica's testimony had caught his attention in a way that the earlier proceedings hadn't. Miss Stone, call your next witness. I call Cassandra Donovan. Cassandra walked to the witness stand on shaking legs. She had been dreading this moment for months. Being cross-examined by Mr. Brighton while Jessica watched from the gallery felt like walking into a trap. Patricia led her through the basic questions. Her job as a high school English teacher. Her income. Her living situation. Her care of Zoe during the first 4 months of the baby's life. Mrs. Donovan, why are you opposed to overnight visitation for your ex-husband? Zoe is still very young and she's breastfeeding. She's never spent a night away from me. I think it would be traumatic for her. Are you opposed to Mr. Donovan having a relationship with his daughter? No. I want him to have a relationship with Zoe. But I want that relationship to develop naturally as she gets older. How do you feel about Ms. Wright's involvement in your daughter's life? Cassandra looked at Jessica, who was sitting forward in her seat like she was watching her favorite television show. I think Zoe is too young to be introduced to her father's girlfriend. She needs stability and consistency. What concerns you about Ms. Wright specifically? She participated in adultery during my pregnancy. She helped my husband deceive me while I was carrying his child. I don't think she has good judgment when it comes to what's best for children. Thank you, Mrs. Donovan. No further questions. Mr. Brighton approached with a stack of papers and a smile that made Cassandra nervous. Mrs. Donovan, isn't it true that you're using breastfeeding as a way to prevent your ex-husband from having overnight visits? No. I'm breastfeeding because it's what's best for my daughter. But you refuse to supplement with formula, even though it would make visitation easier? Zoe is 4 months old. Breast milk is the best nutrition for her. Mrs. Donovan, are you familiar with the American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines on breastfeeding? Cassandra wasn't sure where this was going. Yes. And those guidelines say that babies can be successfully weaned to formula at any point, correct? They can be, but that doesn't mean they should be. So it's your choice to continue breastfeeding, not a medical necessity? It's what I believe is best for my daughter. Mrs. Donovan, isn't it true that you've told other people that you hope Mr. Donovan will lose interest in Zoe if visitation is difficult enough? Cassandra's blood ran cold. She had never said that. No, that's not true. You never expressed the hope that your ex-husband would give up and go away? No. Mr. Brighton showed her a piece of paper. This is a statement from your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. She says you told her, and I quote, "Maybe if visitation is hard enough, Roland will just give up and focus on his new life." Cassandra stared at the paper. She remembered the conversation with Mrs. Patterson, but it hadn't been like that. Mrs. Patterson had asked if she thought Roland would really want to deal with a crying baby every weekend, and Cassandra had said maybe he would decide it was too much work. That's taken out of context. So you did say it? I said that some fathers lose interest when parenting gets difficult. I didn't say I hoped he would. But you did think he might give up if visitation was challenging? I thought he might realize that being a father is harder than he expected. Mr. Brighton was making her sound calculating and manipulative, like she was deliberately making things difficult to drive Roland away. Mrs. Donovan, how do you feel about your ex-husband's relationship with Ms. Wright? I think they're both selfish people who put their own wants ahead of everyone else's needs. Are you angry with them? Yes. Angry enough to use your daughter as a weapon against them? No. I would never use my daughter as a weapon. But you admit you're angry? Of course I'm angry. My husband cheated on me while I was pregnant. He moved his mistress into our house. He's planning to marry her while our divorce isn't even final yet. Anyone would be angry. And that anger influences your decisions about custody? My decisions about custody are based on what's best for Zoe, not on your desire to punish your ex-husband? No. Mr. Brighton was skilled at making reasonable anger sound like vindictive manipulation. Every answer made Cassandra sound more unstable. Mrs. Donovan, you named your daughter after your divorce lawyer. Don't you think that shows a certain level of vindictiveness? Cassandra looked at Patricia, who nodded slightly. I named my daughter after a woman who fought for what was right. Patricia Stone is a strong, intelligent woman who helped me protect my child. I'm proud to have her name associated with my daughter. You're proud to have your daughter named after the person who's trying to keep her away from her father? I'm proud to have my daughter named after someone who puts children's needs first. Mr. Brighton switched tactics. Mrs. Donovan, have you ever been treated for depression or anxiety? No. Have you ever seen a therapist or counselor? Not since college. So you've never sought professional help for dealing with your divorce or becoming a single mother? I have a strong support system. My family, my friends, my colleagues. But no professional mental health support? I don't need professional mental health support. Mrs. Donovan, don't you think it would be beneficial for Zoe to have two parents who are happily partnered rather than one angry single mother? Patricia stood up. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. But the question had been asked and Cassandra had to answer it. I think it would be beneficial for Zoe to have parents who respect each other and put her needs first. I don't think she benefits from being around people who lie and cheat and break their promises. Thank you, Mrs. Donovan. No further questions. As Cassandra returned to her seat, she felt like she had been through a blender. Mr. Brighton had made her sound angry, vindictive, and possibly unstable. Everything she said in her own defense had been twisted to support his narrative. Miss Stone, any redirect? Just a few questions, Your Honor. Patricia approached Cassandra with a gentle expression. Mrs. Donovan, you testified that you're angry about your husband's affair. Is that anger directed at your daughter? No. My daughter is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love her completely. Does your anger affect how you care for Zoe? No. If anything, it makes me more determined to give her the best life possible. When you make decisions about custody and visitation, what do you think about? What's best for Zoe? Not what's easiest for me, not what makes me feel better, but what helps her grow up healthy and secure. Thank you. No further questions. Judge Sanchez looked at his notes for a long moment. The courtroom was completely quiet except for the sound of papers rustling and people breathing. I'm ready to make my ruling, Judge Sanchez said. Cassandra's heart stopped. She had expected him to take the case under advisement, to think about it for a few days or weeks. She wasn't ready for an immediate decision. This has been a difficult case because it involves a very young child and parents who clearly have strong feelings about each other. However, my primary concern is the welfare of the minor child. Judge Sanchez looked directly at Roland. Mr. Donovan, I appreciate your desire to be an active father. However, your testimony today has convinced me that you're not ready for overnight visitation with a 4-month-old infant. Your experience is limited, and your priorities seem unclear. Roland looked shocked. I'm going to continue the current arrangement of supervised visitation for another 3 months. At that time, we can revisit the possibility of extended visitation. Cassandra felt a wave of relief wash over her. However, I want to address something else that came up during today's testimony. Judge Sanchez turned his attention to Jessica, who had been smiling since he started talking. Ms. Wright, I need to ask you a direct question. Jessica sat up straighter, clearly expecting praise for her testimony. During your cross-examination, you testified about your knowledge of marital assets and financial arrangements between Mr. and Mrs. Donovan. You seemed very familiar with their financial situation for someone who wasn't married to either of them. Jessica's smile faltered slightly. Ms. Wright, have you had access to bank accounts or financial records belonging to the Donovans? The question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Jessica looked at Mr. Brighton, who was frantically shuffling through papers. I might have seen some documents. What kind of documents? Bank statements, credit card bills, things like that. And how did you come to see these documents? Roland showed them to me. Why did Mr. Donovan show you his marital financial records? Jessica was starting to look panicked. We were planning our future together. He wanted me to understand the financial situation. Ms. Wright, did you help Mr. Donovan move money from accounts that included Mrs. Donovan's name? The courtroom was dead silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. Roland said he had a right to the money. That's not what I asked. Did you help him move money? Yes. Did you know that Mrs. Donovan didn't know about these transfers? Jessica looked at Roland desperately. Roland said it was okay. Ms. Wright, did you personally benefit from money that was taken from joint marital accounts? I don't understand. Did Mr. Donovan buy you things with money from accounts that belonged to both him and his wife? Jessica was trapped and she knew it. Maybe. Ms. Wright, let me ask you this very simply. Did Mr. Donovan buy your engagement ring with money from a joint account that belonged to him and Mrs. Donovan? Jessica looked like she was going to be sick. Yes. The courtroom erupted. Mr. Brighton was on his feet objecting. Patricia was trying not to smile. Cassandra felt like she couldn't breathe. Order, Judge Sanchez said, banging his gavel. When the room was quiet again, Judge Sanchez leaned forward. Ms. Wright, are you aware that knowingly participating in the fraudulent transfer of marital assets is a crime? I didn't know it was fraudulent. But you knew Mrs. Donovan didn't know about it? Yes. And you accepted expensive gifts that were purchased with stolen money? It wasn't stolen. Roland said. Ms. Wright, what Mr. Donovan said is irrelevant. The money belonged to both spouses. Using it to buy gifts for your mistress without the other spouse's knowledge is fraud. Jessica started crying. Not the delicate tears of a woman trying to garner sympathy, but the ugly sobs of someone who realized she was in serious trouble. Your Honor, Mr. Brighton said, my client was not aware. Mr. Brighton, I suggest you advise your client to seek independent counsel immediately. And I suggest you advise Mr. Donovan to do the same. Judge Sanchez turned back to Jessica. Ms. Wright, you are no longer welcome in my courtroom. If you attend any future hearings in this matter, I will have you arrested for contempt. Jessica stumbled out of the courtroom, still crying. Roland looked like he had been hit by a truck. Mr. Donovan, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of fraud and perjury. You lied under oath about your financial dealings, and you stole from your wife to support your mistress. Judge Sanchez looked at his notes one more time. As for custody, I'm awarding full physical custody to Mrs. Donovan. Mr. Donovan will have supervised visitation 2 hours per week until further order of the court. Given his dishonesty and criminal behavior, I cannot trust him with overnight visitation at this time. Cassandra couldn't believe what she was hearing. Full custody. Jessica banned from the courtroom. Roland facing criminal charges. This court is adjourned. As people filed out of the courtroom, Cassandra sat in her chair trying to process what had just happened. 6 months of fear and uncertainty had ended in complete vindication. Patricia put her hand on Cassandra's shoulder. It's over, she said. You won. But looking at Roland's devastated face as he was led away by his lawyer, Cassandra didn't feel like she had won anything. She had protected her daughter, and that was all that mattered. 6 months later, Cassandra stood in the kitchen of her new house, making coffee and watching 10-month-old Zoe play with blocks on the floor. The house wasn't large, but it had 3 bedrooms, a fenced yard, and enough space for Zoe to grow up safely. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, moving and adjusting to life as a single mother. Roland had been charged with fraud and perjury. Jessica had been charged as an accessory. Both had pleaded guilty to reduced charges and received probation, but the scandal had destroyed Roland's accounting practice and Jessica's career in corporate training. The civil case had been settled quickly once the criminal charges were filed. Cassandra had received the house, most of the retirement accounts, and enough money to provide security for herself and Zoe. Roland's visitation had been reduced to 1 hour per week, supervised at the family center. Mama, Zoe said, holding up a blue block. That's right, baby. Blue. Zoe was walking now, taking wobbly steps between the couch and the coffee table. She was a happy child with an easy laugh and curious eyes that reminded Cassandra of her own mother. The doorbell rang and Cassandra opened it to find Linda holding a bouquet of flowers and a wrapped gift. How's the birthday girl? Linda asked, scooping Zoe up in her arms. She's perfect. And she knows it. They were having a small party for Zoe's first birthday. Just family and a few close friends. Nothing elaborate, but a celebration of how far they had come. Any word from Roland? Linda asked as they set up decorations in the living room. He sent a card. A generic, happy birthday card with his name signed at the bottom. Cassandra had stopped being angry at Roland months ago. Now she just felt sorry for him. He had destroyed his life and his family for a relationship with a woman who had testified against him in exchange for a reduced sentence. Jessica had ended their relationship as soon as she was charged, claiming she had been manipulated and used. Does he know about the new job? I haven't told him. It's not really his business anymore. Cassandra had been offered a position as department head at a prestigious private school. The salary was significantly higher than her previous job, and the benefits included tuition remission for Zoe when she was old enough to attend. I'm proud of you, Linda said. Look at everything you've built. It was true. The life Cassandra had created for herself and Zoe was better than anything she had imagined during the dark days of the divorce. She had friends who respected her. Work that challenged her. A daughter who was healthy and happy and loved. The party was small but joyful. Zoe delighted in the attention and made a magnificent mess with her birthday cake. Cassandra's parents had driven in from 2 hours away and were already planning Christmas visits. As the guests were leaving, Cassandra's mother pulled her aside. You look happy, she said. I am happy. Really happy. Not just putting on a brave face. Cassandra looked around her house. Pictures of Zoe covered the refrigerator. Toys were scattered across the living room floor. The furniture was mismatched but comfortable. Everything was exactly the way she wanted it. I really am happy, Mom. For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I want to be. After everyone left, Cassandra put Zoe down for her nap and sat in the rocking chair she had bought for the nursery. The house was quiet except for the sound of Zoe's steady breathing over the baby monitor. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Saw the news about your new job. Congratulations. Dinner soon to celebrate? Cassandra smiled and typed back, absolutely. Thank you for everything. Patricia had become more than just a lawyer. She was a friend and mentor who had taught Cassandra that standing up for herself didn't make her vindictive or difficult. It made her strong. That evening, after Zoe was asleep, Cassandra sat on her front porch with a cup of tea and thought about the past year. 12 months ago, she had been a pregnant woman whose life was falling apart. Tonight, she was a successful single mother with a beautiful daughter and a bright future. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. Hello. Cassandra? This is Detective Morrison from the Fraud Unit. I wanted to update you on the restitution payments. Roland was required to pay back the money he had stolen from their joint accounts. The payments came monthly and went directly into a college fund for Zoe. The payments are current, Detective Morrison said. And I wanted to let you know that both defendants have completed their community service requirements. Thank you for keeping me informed. How are you and your daughter doing? We're doing great. Better than great, actually. After she hung up, Cassandra realized she felt nothing when people mentioned Roland and Jessica. Not anger, not sadness, not even curiosity about what their lives were like now. They had become footnotes in her story rather than the central drama. Inside the house, Zoe woke up and started fussing. Cassandra went to her room and found her standing in her crib, holding her favorite stuffed animal. Hey, sleepyhead. Ready for some milk? As she sat in the rocking chair feeding Zoe, Cassandra thought about the future. Zoe would start walking confidently soon. She would learn to talk, to read, to ask a million questions about everything. She would go to preschool and make friends and have birthday parties and soccer games and dance recitals. And she would grow up knowing that her mother had fought for her. That her mother had chosen truth over comfort, justice over convenience, and love over fear. You know what, baby girl? Cassandra whispered as Zoe's eyes grew heavy. We're going to be just fine. Zoe yawned and snuggled closer. Outside, the sun was setting behind the trees in their backyard. Inside, the house was warm and safe and filled with love. It wasn't the life Cassandra had planned, but it was the life she had chosen. And it was perfect. 2 years later, Cassandra received an invitation in the mail. Her high school was inducting her into their Hall of Fame for excellence in education and community service. The ceremony would be held in the auditorium where she had first fallen in love with literature and decided to become a teacher. She accepted the award with 3-year-old Zoe sitting in the front row, clapping enthusiastically every time someone said, "Mommy." In her acceptance speech, Cassandra talked about the importance of teaching young people to stand up for themselves and fight for what's right. She talked about resilience and integrity and the power of truth to overcome deception. She didn't mention Roland or Jessica by name, but everyone in the audience knew the story. How a pregnant woman had been betrayed and humiliated, but had refused to give up. How she had fought for justice and won. How she had built a beautiful life from the ashes of betrayal. After the ceremony, as Cassandra walked across the parking lot holding Zoe's hand, she thought about how different her life was from what she had imagined 5 years ago. She had expected to be married to Roland forever, raising their children together in suburban comfort. Instead, she was raising an amazing daughter alone, thriving in her career, and surrounded by people who truly cared about her. She had learned that sometimes the life you don't plan turns out to be better than the life you thought you wanted. "Mommy, ice cream?" Zoe asked, tugging on her hand. "Yes, baby. We can get ice cream." As they drove toward the ice cream shop, Cassandra caught Zoe's eye in the rearview mirror. Her daughter was singing a song she had learned in preschool, completely happy and secure in the knowledge that she was loved. Jessica and Roland had tried to destroy Cassandra's life, but they had actually given her something better. They had forced her to discover her own strength. They had pushed her to fight for what mattered. They had shown her that she was capable of building a life entirely on her own terms. The sun was shining, Zoe was giggling in her car seat, and Cassandra's future stretched ahead of them bright and full of possibilities. Justice had been served. Love had prevailed. And life was very, very good.